kind of one was the router running. Now we've got leadership style. And leadership style is a huge topic. And these slides are by no means kind of the be all and end all. And they certainly aren't the definitive answer to anything. But it's more like this is more like an introduction. Leadership style 101. Content. I've tried to lay it as well as possible. And thanks to Little Zed's amazing formatting as always. Hopefully you guys like how they look. So what we'll be covering today, you can see the quick overview on slide 2. What are leadership styles, leadership framework, behaviors of a leader, coaching circle, leadership style, what is my leadership style, and then a quick summary. Like I say, this isn't the be all and end all of leadership. Leadership is a huge topic, and this is just kind of one way to look at leadership. So moving on to slide 3, what are leadership styles? Well, leadership styles determine how often you behave as a leader and can help you understand your strengths and weaknesses as a leader. Leadership styles exist on a spectrum from transactional leadership on one side to transformational leadership on the other. So a leadership style, to put bluntly, is exactly what it says on the tin. It is the manner in which you lead. It's how you behave when leading. So on the left, you can see transactional leadership. This is very much kind of what you'd expect the word transactional to mean, right? It's right, you do this for me and I'll give you this, right? Or we'll achieve this. Transformational leadership, again, kind of what it says on the tin, right? Hey, if you're able to do this, then we can do this. And you'll see later on why that's important. Moving on to leadership framework. This is kind of what we're going to base everything in that we talk about tonight. So here in the leadership framework, we have 3 main things. What leaders are, what leaders know, and what leaders do. So what are leaders? Well, leaders are quite simply, champions of value and standards, the example, they're responsible, and they're influential. Now, champions of values and standards will vary from outfit to outfit and planet side, right? Because each outfit has their own values and standards. Hell, in BWAE, we have our own values and standards of each squad, right? So Alpha Squad likes to value static point holding, while Delta Squad likes to value crushing Zergs. And then a standard, Charlie Squad likes to really hold itself up to a high standard. And so leaders should always be, the kind of example, right, of these values and standards, which of course brings me nicely on to being the example. I'm sure you've all heard the phrase, right? Lead by example. That's what leaders are. They're the example. Because if you're not the best, then why should people follow you? Leaders are also responsible. The buck stops with the leader. Those who were at the last leadership workshop, you might have heard me say, right, no matter what, even if the squad leader is potentially at fault, if the SL doesn't achieve his or her objective, then it's their own fault. As the SL, you take on the responsibility of leading. And outside the planet side, right? If you're the leader, right, there's no BS or he said this, she did this, right? It's nonsense. If you're the leader, you're the one who's totally responsible. And leaders are also influential. Now, what I mean by this is they're not sitting, doing silly politics, with other outfits forever. But leaders, when they talk, and when they go into a TeamSpeak channel, or when they write something in a Discord channel, something serious, of course, people will look at it and be like, "Huh, that's that's a good point, right?" So this then leads us on to what leaders know. Leaders know, quote unquote, competence, decision making, communication, and experience. Now, what leaders know is kind of a oxymoron, right? Because people don't know, people don't know competence. They don't know decision making. It's something they actually develop constantly. A competent SL or PL will, for the most part, most likely have started off as an incompetent SL or PL, and over time and with more experience, you will, develop into becoming competent. Decision making, again, oxymoron, right? You don't really know decision making. Yes, you understand the process of decision making, and even you might have a natural ability to make the right decisions in a good time, but it's something you'll constantly develop as your understanding of whatever kind of situation you're leading in grows. Communication. To be a leader, you have to be able to communicate. Simple as. If you can't communicate as a leader, and you don't know how to communicate, then you're in big trouble, because communication is the difference between speed, efficiency, and being effective to being slow, sluggish, ineffective, and sloppy. And then leaders know experience. Again, experience is something you develop every day. No matter what. Maybe you pick up a social skill somewhere, and then you pick up a little tactic another day, so on and so forth. You're always trying to develop your experience so you can understand things better. What leaders do? First of all, they develop individuals. They either develop themselves or they also develop others. Leaders should always strive to develop people who they're leading, especially themselves. Again, the leader is, they are the responsible one. The buck stops with them. If they're not constantly developing themselves to be better than they were the day before, then they're failing as a leader. And the same goes for who they're leading. If your op as a PL is bad on a Wednesday and worse on a Friday, that means you fail to develop not only yourself but quite probably others as well. And you want to be developing others, because the more success they achieve, the more fun they are likely to have. Building teams. How do they build teams? Well, leaders set directives, develop cohesion, raise standards, and they empower. So, setting a directive, right? Let's say you're at Xenotech Labs, and your PL says to you, "Hey, brother or cell, re-secure Xenotech Labs. You've secured the point, and there's an enemy spawn, Sunderer, to the south of the base. Well, how are you going to re-secure the base as the PL has ordered? Well, you're going to kill the Sunday, right? So you set the directive of, hey, we're going to go kill the Sunday. Well, how do you develop cohesion in this example? You regroup, whether it's at a waypoint or spawn room or whatever. You regroup, and naturally, just bringing the squad together will increase your cohesion in this example. You raise standards. So the way you would do that in this example is by making sure everyone has the right equipment. For example, if they're playing heavy, you want them having a rocket launcher which is suitable for destroying an enemy Sunderer. If they're a medic, making sure they've got C4, so on and so forth, right guys? And then you want to ensure you empower them. In this situation, it would be perfectly alright to simply, from your regroup location, say, right, put a waypoint on the Sunderer. This is what we're going to go kill. Let's go kill it. And then you let your squad get on with things. By giving them that little bit of freedom, you empower them to make the right decision. And if they don't make the right decision, then you can develop them afterwards in a squad debrief or whatever by saying, hey, you know, when I gave you guys the freedom to, you know, decide how best to destroy that Sunderer, and you guys took 10 minutes to do it, well, this is how you would have done it, like should have done it, and it would have taken 30 seconds. And above all, leaders also achieve the objective. Whether it's an objective that SL or the leader sets themselves, or if it's given to them via expectations from the people they're leading, or it's coming from above, from the leaders above them, right? That is where your objective comes from. You always want to achieve it. If you fail to achieve your objective, you failed for that op in planet side, right? Or whatever you're trying to achieve, that game, etc., etc. So that is the framework we're dealing with. And so moving on, we'll have questions at the end here. Moving on to behaviors of a leader. So it's quite nice, actually, this one, because you can remember it simply by the leader's mnemonic, right? So L, lead by example. E, encourage thinking. A, apply reward and discipline. D, demand high performance. E, encourage confidence in the team. R, recognize individual strengths and weaknesses. And S, strive for team goals. Leaders. For me personally, this has been a very useful mnemonic. And it's not really a checklist of like, you know, I'm not really sitting down there anymore, you know, in front of my computer screen, or, you know, when I'm leading in real life, doing other stuff which requires leadership. I'm not sitting there with a checklist being like, right, I've done this. I showed, I led by example. I guess I recognized individual strengths and weaknesses. It's a mental checklist. It's something you've got to be able to remember for yourself. And these are behaviors which you really should strive to develop and turn them into almost a habit rather than a behavior. Moving on to the coaching circle. Now, this is useful for leaders when they're working with roughly the same team over and over again, whether that be for a lane smash, a PIL match, for, you know, a work project, so on and so forth. Really useful to be able to help develop people using this. So you want to have a vision first of all, right? By having a clear vision, it gives your team confidence, right? And it allows them to see the goal which you're striving towards clearly. Once you've established a vision, you apply support, right? So you apply reward and discipline, and you recognize individuals. This way, no one is feeling like they're too far ahead or too far behind in the team, and they all feel, most importantly, like a team. And then, of course, you have challenge. You want to encourage thinking and demand performance, and, you know, this goes back to expectations, right, and standards, to ensure that you know, your vision is achieved on time and in the correct way. For me personally, the coaching circle, again, another thing I've used just as a reminder, you know, not necessarily it's not like a Bible or anything. I'm not trying to preach this as the be all and end all, but it's just a reminder of certain attributes and things you can do to help your team in achieving something. Moving on then to what our main topic is, the 7 main styles. So on the scale of transactional leadership to transformational leadership, you have 7 main styles, which are widely recognized as the 7 main styles. And of course, Googling leadership styles, you will find many, many Google results. And so I do encourage you to do your own research. And there are links on the next slide about helping you understand leadership styles a bit more and what your leadership style is. So again, this isn't the complete guide to leadership, but it's a good stepping stone. So the first style, the directive style, is the most transactional. Quite simply, it's do what I tell you. It's a very authoritarian and very direct style of leadership. Below that, you have the pace-setting style. Do what I do now. This is perfect for those leaders who love to lead by example. For example, when I'm leading my Charlie squad in BWAE, I'm always the first one up the staircase, or throwing resonades, throwing utility, making sure that everyone understands exactly what's going on and that they know what I expect of them, because I'm also able to perform to that level, right? That's why in other walks of life, for example, leaders in the military, they're expected to be fitter than the people they lead, right? Because they need to be able to do everything that the people they're leading can do, but also do more as well on top of that, and that's why they're super fit, or more fit, right? The participator style comes next. It's kind of, what do you think? Now, for me personally, I like using this when there's not a time pressure. If there's time pressure, that's when I use a pace setting style. If there's no time pressure, this is the style I use, and it's perfect for the initial planning meetings, which you might do for a project, and it's also perfect for debriefing, right? It's like, well, to give you an example, again in my squad, after every op, even if it's one of the best nights we've ever had, there will be a debrief, and I will ask each individual to share their opinion on something positive and something negative. The coaching style, what could you achieve? Again, this is kind of now starting to reach in between transactional and transformational. And the coaching style is really useful for developing people, again, over time, over long periods of time. Not so useful for short periods of time where there's time pressure, time constraints, so on and so forth. What could you achieve is the best way to describe this style. It kind of inspires, and it leads to the person who or the team you're leading with it. It leads to them being kind of able to think a bit freer, and also think critically for themselves. Then you have the visionary style. This is where we are going, right? Again, this is commonly used with the coaching style, right? So basketball coaches going, right, we're going to win this tournament or this prize or whatever, or leaders in the workplace going, this is going to be our turnover for this quarter, for example, right? Again, it's great for kind of setting the overall picture, but not so great for micromanaging. The affiliative style, it's people come first, and you're more concerned about kind of how people feel, and how working towards a certain goal is going to affect them, and if it affects them, especially if it affects them negatively. And so often these types of leaders, they're often more they often seem more empathetic simply because they're constantly asking people, what do you think? Oh, by the way, guys, this is where what we're trying to achieve. they can actually often seem kind of just easygoing, which brings me to the extreme version of that, which is hands-off, which is the laissez-faire style. Totally transformational. These are the leaders who once in a while might say, don't forget guys, this is the aim or whatever, and just let the team do what they want. And in my opinion, a hands-off style might be perfect if your team has no issues at all. If your team's perfect, theoretically you don't need to micromanage it all, right? If your heavy assault knows which staircase to hold, if your medic knows when to throw the resonades, then if they are actually perfect, then you can be hands-off as a leader. But personally, I believe no one is perfect. And so this style, in my opinion, isn't the most effective. However, there are leaders who can use each style, and in my opinion, with these 7 main styles, it's not about choosing one and sticking with it. It's choosing 3 and knowing when to apply each one. But there's no reason to restrict yourself. If you understand perfectly the situations which you're trying to use each style in, then you should be fine in terms of, actually being a very good and competent leader. So with this being said, we'll move on to what is my style. Here you've got 2 links, which you can do whenever, and these links will help you kind of discover your own style. Personally, my style, right, is, as I said, my main one is a pace setting style, and then my kind of sub style is kind of participative, and then my third style is visionary, or depending on the situation, I can swing to the other side of the transactional transformational leadership scale, and I'll swing straight up to directive, especially if there's time pressure. If there's time pressure, like last 30 seconds of the cap, and I say everyone to get to the objective, the capture point, that is very directive, and that's because there's a super high amount of time pressure.
User joined your channel.
So again, I encourage you guys to use these links. Use both of them, because you might get a different answer from each one, and it's up to you to kind of have the critical thinking ability to understand, am I kind of kidding myself about thinking, I'm this sort of leader, or I'm that sort of leader. Very important you guys work it out for yourself, but also that you don't want to be padding your ego or anything. If you're a laissez-faire leader, and you don't think that if you don't like that style, then work on developing yourself, right? Because going back to what I said earlier, it's one of the things leaders do. So moving on to the summary, serve to lead is something I follow quite closely and I believe in. And that leadership is a service, especially in PlanetSide, right? Because the service you're providing as a leader in PlanetSide is a better PlanetSide experience. Everyone in your squad is there to have fun and to achieve an objective, either capping bases, crushing Zerg, so on and so forth. They're there, in your squad to achieve that objective and to have fun. And that is your service. The service you provide as a leader is more fun and an increase in the likelihood of achieving the objective. You want to, as I say, serve to lead to achieve an objective, and of course the objective in gaming is to enhance the experience of the people you're leading. And so remember that. If someone is unhappy in your squad, you can tell them, hey, if you're not happy, just leave. It's not a problem. That should be your last resort as a leader, because you should never have to kick or say to anyone, hey, if you're not happy, you can leave, because obviously you're hoping, or you should be achieving an environment in which almost everyone is going to have an enhanced experience. So as I said, most people have a primary, secondary, and even sometimes a tertiary leadership style, and it's up to you to kind of have that ability, that critical thinking, and that introspection ability to work out what you have. And now here, there's two last points, which I kind of want to just talk about real quick. Specialization over generalization. Now, specialization will make you, more effective at doing one thing, while generalization, of course, makes you more effective at doing multiple things. Now, obviously, personally, when I lead BWAE Charlie squad, we specialize in infantry play, right? However, we do have a couple people with pilot abilities, and a basic understanding and ability in tanking, cheese, so on and so forth. However, that's at squad level. If you break it down into an individual level in Charlie's squad, normally speaking, we have a few people who are specialized as pilots if needed, one or two people who are specialized in cheese, force multipliers, so on and so forth, right? We got a person who specialized in router running and engineering. We've got a medic who is specialized in being able to tether, and a heavy assault to go with him. And then we have a medic who specializes in rotations, so on and so forth, right? And then that kind of just builds up over time into adaptability over versatility. Now, by having the potential to be more adaptable than versatile, this may seem slightly like an oxymoron, but again, in my opinion, I believe in if you have enough specialization in your squad or in your team or whatever, you're then able to be adaptable to most situations, right? And versatility. What in this situation, what I mean by this is kind of you don't have that specialization, but you have that generalization which allows you to be versatile. In my opinion, being more specialized and also having adaptability is better than having a squad which is quite generalized and versatile. Because if you match up these squads in any situation, the one which has more specialization and adaptability over generalization and versatility will win most of the time. You know, obviously it depends on the leader, but most of the time they'll win. And these are topics that we may explore further along the line, but I just wanted to put them in there, kind of hopefully just to pique your interest. And then, again, I encourage anyone who kind of finds leadership interesting to really do their own research, because although these kind of workshops are designed to be introductory, because of that, they're limited in nature, and so there's so much literature out there, so many videos, podcasts, whatever. However you want to be able to consume the information, there's so much out there. I really do encourage people to really read into it. With this being said, that kind of concludes the slideshow. We now move on to the most important part about any leadership workshop, and that's the questions and the comments and the feedback, right? So, first of all, are there any questions?
Do you have any resources about utilizing whichever leadership role you have?
So on the two links, good question by the way, Britsu. On the two links, one of them, I think, has a tab for further reading of each leadership style, and that should hopefully be what you're looking for. If not, again, literally just Google the leadership style you think you possess, or the one you kind of want to look more into, and there's so much content on the internet for it. Good question. Any other questions?
I have a question about the main styles. When would you say a good time to change from style to style would be, as far as like situation would dictate it to change or need to change?
Yeah, sure. Good question. For me personally, it's time constraint. If the situation, because most of the time, the more stressful a situation is, the more to the wire it becomes, right? And so as you start to run out of time, what I tend to do, at least, is I tend to move into a more transactional way of leading as time progresses, as you start to feel the pressure, you just become a bit more directive. You micromanage a bit more, and you provide more support. But in terms of support, you have two types of support, right? You've got proactive support, where you actively go out and you support your team members, or you have the offer of support, so non-proactive support, and that relies on them coming to you. Again, that fits on the transactional transformational scale. So non-proactive is more transformational. It relies on them, while transactional starts to it is the proactive way of providing support. And that relies on you to make sure you're not overbearing or mistiming it, or even being rude, because some people will find being more transactional rude, which, if there's not much time pressure, can cause tension within the team. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Great. Yeah, again, a very good question. Anyone else? Any further questions, guys?
How would one determine if they've, well, I guess kind of using the website, but like, how would you feel like you've changed leadership styles without using the website? Just like asking squad and stuff for feedback?
Yes. Asking squads, people who you lead, for feedback is, providing they actually, give you actual feedback rather than, just boosting your ego, is a good way to do it. But this is why critical thinking is so important for a leader, because they need to be able to realize themselves certain things about about their leadership styles, right? And this kind of falls into identifying individual strengths and weaknesses, and identifying your own individual strengths and weaknesses. For example, I know a strength of my leadership is my micromanagement. If I'm, if my squad needs it, I can micromanage the 11 other people, more or less. A weakness of mine, which I'm very much aware of, is overconfidence. And that can kind of lead to, if you're not careful, arrogance, so on and so forth. And so, for me personally, my overconfidence has been something I've been working on for months now. And it may be something I never truly solve. But that's the nature of your weaknesses, in stuff that you do. A programmer might not understand one program language, but might understand the other, even though they need to understand both. And that's just how it is. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, yeah. A little more above and beyond than I expected, but yeah, thanks.
I'd rather go above and beyond than not answer it, so that's fine.
Yeah.
Good question, thank you. Please continue. Any other questions, guys, please?
Missed the first part. So, but what does transactional and transformational leadership refer to?
Exactly what you'd expect. It's exactly in the meaning of both words, right? So transactional is, let's say we all know what a transaction is, right?
User
You
joined
go
your
to, you
channel.
go to the grocery store, you give someone money, they give you an item, right? There you are. And the same is with transactional leadership. You give them vision, you give them the ability and the confidence to do something, and they'll give you the hopefully your expected result. Transformational leadership, on the other hand, is you can support them and provide them with what they need, and they can just go off and do it for the most part. And it's a simplified way of looking at it, but transactional is often more micromanagey, while transformational not so. And again, on slide 7, you have the most transactional style, the directive style at the top, and then the most transformational style at the bottom. Hope that helps.
Yeah, thanks.
Any other questions, guys? Because honestly, this is, in my opinion, the most important thing, because anyone can look at the slideshows, retroactively and be like, well, I guess that's interesting, or I don't really understand that, but I can't be asked to drop a message. So there's no dumb questions. If you have a question, please ask it.
Sure. Let's say I want to reinforce a particular style of leadership. How would I go about doing that?
Oh, that's really difficult. That's a really good question. So the way I personally worked on reinforcing kind of my secondary and tertiary styles was just to remember that I should really work on them. Just reminding myself, really. So, for example, in the past, I was very much only kind of pace setting. And so, in order to reinforce my more participative style, it was introducing the Charlie Squad debriefs at the end of each op. And so that helped me reinforce that particular style, because I realized once I removed the time pressure from a certain situation, I realized I could often dissect it better, and with the opinions of the team, and their own specialized knowledge, it would increase my understanding, and it would just be more efficient and effective for the team as a whole. So that's how I reinforce that one. In terms of being able to reinforce other styles, there's no really set way to do it, which is a bit of a cop-out answer, and I don't like giving cop-out answers, but unfortunately that's the reality of the situation.
I understand.
Like affiliative style, like if you wanted to reinforce that, theoretically, a way you could do that is by reaching out to people. Let's say you have ops on a Friday, and then you reach out to them Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and you ask them, hey, and you just talk to them, right? And then Wednesday, let's say you have another op, you can kind of put that more knowledge about your team into play. So that's one, I guess, in theory, one way you could work on that. Again, this is why, as a leader, critical thinking is so important, because being able to reinforce your own styles, or working on what's best for you is super important. And for the most part, unless they're like a very experienced leader, they probably won't be able to, and in like a 60-second period, be able to tell you, hey, this is how you do this is how you do that. I know it's a bit of a cop out, but I hope that helps.
No, it helps.
So we got a typed out. Oh, Fluffin, did you read that one out?
No. He
Oh,
answered later, but
you asked about reinforcing styles, right?
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, but Balfour wrote in the chat, what do you think is the best way to work on your strengths and weaknesses as a leader? As you say, yeah, it is very similar. Again, yeah, it goes back to critical thinking, right? Your ability to critically think and evaluate yourself. And that is why ego and being able to remove ego from the situation, when you're seriously looking at your performance, is super important. For example, people who hang around in early morning BWAE team speak, they might hear myself and Bear with having like a pissing match, yeah, just kind of poking fun at one another. But when it comes to serious criticism and evaluation of yourself in order to improve your strengths and work on your weaknesses, you have to be able to put aside your ego and seriously have a look. And so, you can imagine how difficult that is for me, for example, with my overconfidence. But it is something that I've developed. And so really the best way to do it in terms of actionable stuff that you can do, write a list. Okay, these are my strengths as a leader, these are my weaknesses, and just sit there and just work away at them, come up with actions on how to work on them, right? So overconfidence, maybe ask experienced people in my team their opinion, time permitting, and that's just one example. But if if you feel like reflecting on yourself is one of your strengths, that's perfect. But of course, you don't want to be too confident in thinking that's one of your strengths, because that can lull you into a false sense of security if you're not careful. And I hope that kind of answers your question. Yeah, no problem. Anyone else?
For the different styles, which do you think is a good style to teach to someone who has not really had any leadership experience before, or which do you think is like the easiest to explain to someone new?
So, which one would I recommend to a new leader to try and pick up?
Yeah, well, that or just like trying to grab a random person and say, hey, you're going to be leading today. Give like a 5-minute rundown of one of the styles, like explain how to lead.
Okay, so I think the kind of easiest way, so I'm going to be biased in this because I'm obviously going to say that the easiest styles to explain are the ones that I know and that I fall into, right? So kind of pace setting, participative coaching, directive and visionary, in that order. So you can it's very difficult not to impose that your own bias on that. When I work with newer leaders, I I start off with the first principle, serve to lead, right? Because leaders shouldn't be leading to boost their own ego. As I say, it should be to achieve an objective, right? And that objective shouldn't be, look how great I am. It should be, hey, look at how great this team has been under, achieving this objective. And then people will recognize who led it, and then naturally, you'll get that. So if I were to suggest just one style,
User joined your channel.
to suggest just one style to a new leader, probably the participative style, because that way the new leader, the issue with a new leader, right, is the inexperience.
Yeah.
And so the participative style for a new leader is probably the best, time permitting, of course, because that way they're going to be asking people, what do you think about this course of action? What do you think about this strategy or this plan? And then the more experienced people on the team can voice their concerns or their criticisms or their positives, and then as long as there's enough time to do so, then that's great. In really high time pressure situations, maybe they won't have enough time to ask everybody or most of the team, but in that situation, it's up to the leader to pick out the most and second most experienced person and do it that way. And I think, kind of being put on the spot, I feel like that's the one I'd go for.
Okay, that makes sense.
Any other questions, guys?
Do you believe that there is any flexibility in terms of how your leadership style should change based off of the personalities of the
User
people
left your
that you
channel.
are leading?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. 100%. So some people might respond really well to a directive style. Other people might be like, who the hell does this guy think he is? Who is this dude telling me what to do? The cheek of it. And so yeah, 100%. Depending on how that leader wants, how many egos and how large those egos are in the team that you're leading, right? If anyone's ever watched Hell's Kitchen, in the early episodes, if anybody tries to step up as a leader, most of the time the contestants, because they all have huge egos, because they're all trying to become the head chef of a certain restaurant, that anytime someone in the early part of the series tries to step up to be a leader, it will often cut to one of the chefs in the interview room going, who the F is this person think they are, right? And so it's really important that, again, understanding and identifying the team's strengths and weaknesses, that should play directly into the leadership style you adopt for that team. I'm lucky that I was able to develop and foster a culture, which was beneficial for my style, for the lane smash, for my squad in BWAE, and obviously for the PIL team. But you don't always have that luxury, especially if your squad or your team, if there's no continuity, continuity even. There you go. That's the word I was looking for. For example, in my European outfit, we don't have squad sign-ups. I have to work with different people all the time, and some of these people might not like me on a personal level. Doesn't matter. When it comes to them, I'll often suggest or ask them nicely to do stuff if they're in my squad, because honestly, you know, when it comes to the people who kind of might be like, I really don't like this guy, or I really don't think they should be a leader or leading me, asking them nicely to do stuff is normally the way to do it. So you know, hey, XYZ, please pull me a galaxy. Just the use of a single word, please, will often yield you more results than, hey, pull this galaxy right now. You know, in the terms of the situation where the person may not, you know, accept you as the leader, and that's obviously moving away from a transactional style towards a more transformational style. Any other questions? Okay. Sounds like it sounds like we don't have any other questions. Going once. Going twice. Okay. So, no more questions. We'll leave it there then, everybody. Of course, I highly encourage anyone, you know, if after, you know, we're all done, whether it's an hour, a week, or a month later, you have a question, you know where to find my Discord, you know where to contact me. Please don't hesitate to ask me a question. I'll try to help out as best I can. And if I can't help out, I'll point you in the direction of some material or someone else who will be able to help you. Thank you all, really. Thank you all for coming. There will most likely be another leadership workshop soon. The next one will be much more hands-on to do with PlanetSide and leading in PlanetSide. And so we'll probably have a bigger turnout there rather than, you know, this theory session. But I hope you all found it interesting. But above all, I hope you all found it useful and a good use of an hour. And please have a good night, everybody.
Thanks, Bolters.
Thank
User
you.
disconnected from
Thank
your
you, Bolters.
channel. User disconnected from your channel. User
Is this
disconnected
a
from
bad
your
time to
channel.
ask a question?
No, of course not.
User
I
left
sorry,
your
I got a
channel.
little late. I missed most of it, but it was recorded, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Awesome,
Pritsu
okay.
recorded it for me. Yeah.
Sweet. All right. Yeah, I did a lot of work on election night and stuff, so kind of ran over, unfortunately. I know this has been kind of about new leader kind of workshop. What's something, because in order to be like a good leader, I feel like you have to have good followers to a degree, right? What's something that we can do to kind of help the newer leaders that come in and help them kind of get that transition in to a new leadership role as a follower?
As
Oh yeah, good question. Sorry, Pritsu.
as a newish leader, one of the most important things is if you believe that it's not a correct decision to make, you should say it in a way that is not overboarding it.
Mhm.
And you know, you still follow it, but like, you know, afterwards during debrief or whatever, then you bring it up and, you know, talk about it if it's
Mhm.
minor.
Mm.
I
And then
assume-
if it's like a
okay.
massive problem, like you probably just
Yeah.
want to, you know, like try and just like message him or something, you know, something private, and don't
Mhm.
directly in front of the entire squad kind of combat the authority of the leader.
Yeah.
no, for
Try
sure.
and change it.
Okay.
So totally agree with everything that Pritsu just said, right? If you're an experienced person and you've got a new leader, you don't want to
User
be
joined
sitting
your
there
channel.
undermining,
Mhm.
you know, the kind of their, for want of a better word, their authority, you know, or their actions.
Yeah.
You want to, where possible, guide them in the right path and be polite about it. But obviously, don't be too overbearing because that
Mhm.
might create tension.
Okay. I assume it's kind of like a scenario where a lot of esports is, even if the call is bad, if the team 100% commits to it, it's better than the perfect call with 50% of the people committing to it.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
that makes
100%.
sense.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, 100%. Yeah, totally agree. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I look forward to watching the rest of it on OBS because I fucked up my time schedule.
No, honestly, don't worry about it. It's that's why I always make sure Britsu's available, because it is super important to have the recording, especially of the Q&A bit, because it's all very well and good people looking at the slides, but
Oh,
in
you
all
have a
the
slideshow?
yeah, of course.
Can I have a link?
In all the kind of feedback I've ever received, it's always been the Q&A which has been the most helpful, because that way people can apply it much more easily rather than just reading it and being like, I don't really understand this.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yo, I hate to do what I do, but Bolters, did you make this?
No, Zed did the graphics.
Okay, yeah. All right. I was about to congratulate you. I was gonna say you graduated, dude, but dang.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah, no, it was Zed, man. It was Zed. You know my so
I
every
know you're
Sunday,
late.
mate, every Sunday I ask, whenever I'm like the Sunday before,
User
I'll ask
disconnected
Zed,
from your
I'll be like,
channel.
hey, Zed, can you fix this for me?
Oh my goodness, poor Zed, man.
I know he loves doing it. It's like crack for him. No word of a lie.
This is cool. This is actually really awesome.
He did
And
really well with it, yeah.
And he did this all just with tools
On Google
in
Slides, yeah.
Google
Man.
Slides. Yeah, I can
Yeah.
see, but I know other people can't. So I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it? Yeah.
I mean, I just wanted a picture with like a bunch of skinny arrows and where to go. 60 slides. That's what I wanted.
Yeah, no, 9 slides, quick to the point.
Yeah,
Do you guys
quick
talk
to
about
the
that
point is
team
not-
development kind of stuff at
Sorry?
all, or do you guys talk about team development at all, like the stages or whatever they call it, the storming, norming, forming kind of thing? Or no?
No, because
Okay.
that would have, because I like to try to keep these to kind of like 30-40 minutes,
Okay.
and then unlimited time for questions. To kind of talk about team development more, like that would, in my opinion, warrant its own slideshow, its own slide deck. Just because
Got you.
because leadership styles in of itself is a huge enough topic without bringing in the basics of all
Yeah, that
the
makes
topics
sense,
which go into it. Because otherwise we'll just be here for hours and then people lose
True.
concentration, all that
Yeah.
other stuff.
I did like an entire weekend on that once. It was interesting.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Oh man.
I think that's all my questions though. Appreciate you guys taking the time to do this though.
No worries. Thanks for coming.
Bye.
I'm
Have a good day.
I'm gonna hop out. Catch you guys later.
Yeah,
See you later.
man.
User disconnected from
So-
your channel.
Britsu. Any idea on when that'll be like processed and uploaded?